Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in on this week's episode of Connecting with Chels. If you cannot tell where I am, I'm going to be at Milton Frank Stadium today, and this is very important because high school football season is starting up, and this is where all of the Huntsville City schools play. Now, during the summer months, it is going to be very hot. A lot of the student athletes dealing with extreme heat, so we're going to be talking about ways that you can tackle that heat, especially during practices and also games. And joined with me today is our sports director, Carl Prather, otherwise known as our sports expert. He knows everything about football, especially all the things that I don't know, Carl.
I don't know about that, but I am glad to be here with you and all of our viewers here in the Tennessee Valley, North Alabama. And very, very important topic as we head into the first couple of weeks of the high school football season. The heat will play a major factor on so many football fields across our area.
Especially before those temperatures cool down, which I know everybody is wanting that fall weather, but we got to get through these early games before we can get to those nicer, cooler temperatures, Carl.
Yeah, and more importantly for everyone, staying safe, acclimating each of our players across our area to the heat, these first couple of games of the season, so important. The last thing that we wanted, or more importantly, any sudden injuries or heat-related injuries regarding the heat here in our area.
Definitely. And it's not only just about the heat and the temperatures, especially in the southeast. Humidity is going to play a drastic role because essentially with more moisture in the air, sweating is the way that we get rid of that heat, but it's much harder for that sweat to evaporate off our body and cool us off, especially when we have that higher humidity. And this is going to add to stress on the body during those practices and also those scheduled games. Now, two of the main heat illnesses that we look at is going to be heat exhaustion and also heat stroke. With heat exhaustion, you might feel faint or dizzy, you're excessively sweating, and you also have muscle cramps. This needs medical attention. You want to get to a cool, air-conditioned place as soon as possible, and you want to drink plenty of fluids. The main difference, though, between heat exhaustion and also heat stroke, with heat stroke, you stop sweating because your body is no longer able to maintain its temperature. And this calls for emergency. Make sure if you ever have any symptoms of a heat stroke, this includes a throbbing headache, you're no longer sweating, you have red hot dry skin, and you also may lose consciousness, you need to call 911 immediately. And Carl, now the state of Alabama, we do have a heat mandated policy in order to keep all the student athletes safe this year. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those protocols and policies look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So because of the extreme heat, as Chelsea has mentioned throughout this show, it's really important for kids to take a break, but to be completely hydrated to the best of their ability early on. So 4 quarters in a football game, the first quarter, midway through the first quarter, there's a heat break. The referees will blow the game for a timeout. Each respective team will go to their respective sidelines, home and away. Everyone either takes a knee or they stand. The respective trainers and or sports trainers for those high schools go water down each one of the kids, make sure that they're getting all the hydration they possibly can. And then after about a 5-minute interval there, they get right back into the first quarter. They also have this in the second half as well, just to help with the heat. Super important for the Alabama High School Athletic Association. They do an excellent job with trying to hydrate each and every one of these kids just to give them some sort of relief, especially as we mentioned with such a demanding sport and the exertion being put with all of these kids as well. So always remember, when you go to any of our high school football games to start the season, you'll always wonder, gosh, nobody called a time. Why are the referees blowing the game dead? Well, it's because they're trying to get these kids hydrated, and it is mandated, and the protocols, those are in place, a must for the first half of the high school football season. I would say maybe the first 5 weeks of the season before the temperatures kind of cool down, and then more importantly, you don't have to have as many of those water breaks as you normally would throughout the season.
Thank you again for tuning in on this week's episode of Connecting with Chels. And of course, thank you to our sports director, Carl Prather, for giving us all of those heat and humidity safety tips. Of course, you can always stay tuned for our next episode of Connecting with Chels, where we can tell you how weather will impact your everyday life.